Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today on this webinar. I'm delighted to be joined by Justin Woolen from Cisco, so an expert on software-defined networks and Cisco's digital network architecture. It's something that we'll talk about today. So software-defined networks demonstrate really a major shift in IT and highlight a transition from a more hardware-centric IT to something more software-based. And they offer a new way to build and operate networks in a way that can help you make IT deliver a better and more efficient service back into the business, and quickly becoming a standard development. So some of the biggest challenges that we see amongst our customers are visibility, security, adopting cloud services, simplified management, and importantly, the ability to react and adapt quickly to business change. So whether that's business growth, maybe it's adopting new technologies or changes in ways of working. So this is something we've discussed previously in webinars. It's something that we covered with Cisco CTO John Johnson. You know, how do you prepare and execute digital business transformation? So software-defined networks can provide the foundation for businesses to tackle these types of challenges. Your network and security infrastructure can be built from a single digital-ready device, integrating all the tools for intelligence, like around kind of automation, analytics, cloud management, essentially simplifying what used to be very complex. And in particular, something that we'll cover today is the creation of what has become known as intent-based networks, and a term that you may be familiar with. So intent-based networking is the difference between a network that needs continuous attention and one that simply understands what you need to do and can integrate those policies for you. So on that note, I'm going to pass it over to the expert, Justin. If you have any questions, please feel free to type them into the Q&A box. We'll make sure that these are answered at the end, and there'll be time for a Q&A session at the end if you want to ask questions directly. So without further ado, I'll pass you over to Justin.
Everybody, good morning. So I'm Justin Woolen. So I lead the team of enterprise network sales specialists. And our job is to drive change. And that is the auspices of our team. That is the auspices of this presentation, to talk about change and why networks need to change and networking needs to change, and why is Cisco changing, to give you that point of view. If you have any questions, please ask them in the Q&A window. And what I'll do is that I'll check every so often and see if Richard's got any questions that have popped up. But please do make it interactive. If something pops into your head, please pop it into the Q&A window, and we'll definitely have time at the end to answer those questions. So my team looks after all things routing, switching, and wireless, but it's not all the products. It's only the new things that we bring to market. So every time we bring a new product to market, such as the Catalyst 9K or new Wi-Fi access points, or new routers, that's what our team is doing. So what I'm going to give you today is a bit of an overview of what is the situation that we see in the industry today, talk about some of the challenges that we see, which gives us a foundation on why we're needing to change. And then I'll talk about what are we doing, what is Cisco actually doing to drive change. And what I'll then do is, at the end of this end of this presentation, I'll give you a bit of a demonstration to show you that. And that is something that's been really different for us nowadays in Cisco, is because we normally would always talk about, from a networking perspective, products, show you pictures of them. And nowadays, because of this software defined and this move to intent-based networking, we're able to actually demonstrate it now, which is something we've never really been able to do, because it was always something that was hardware-based. But we're moving to the era of software, so I'll give you a bit of a demonstration of that software as well. So, moving on. So we went to a Gartner symposium last year, end of last year in EMEA, and we always have a very special relationship with Gartner, where they actually most of the time we tend to not agree. What has actually happened now is that we're starting to come to alignment on this, around how we're software defined and around intent-based networking. But the real thing that we agree on is around platforms. But the first thing I want to talk about is that this is what EMEA's of Gartner's view of the market. And they actually said, if you were the CIO or the IT director or the network manager of your company, and you had to apply for your job now, would you get it? And this is all the thing about change. How are you as a company? How are you driving change, and how are you moving towards digitization? We all know it's coming. It can be a bit of an easy word to throw around because you can digitize everything. The bit is that actually, what are we doing as a company to do that? And so when you look at this, you can see that pretty much sort of 18–19% of the market, of the people they surveyed, are actually sort of in there already. They're out there. They're digitizing their networks, they're digitizing their platforms, they're digitizing their systems. But most of them aren't there yet. They're either thinking about it, not thinking about it, designing it, or actually out in mid-delivering. And hopefully that while they're delivering, they're hopefully going to get to the outcomes that they think they're going to get to. And that's where they're seeing the market. So you might be somewhere along this line. Cisco is somewhere along this line as well. I think we're always trying to look at how can we optimize and digitize and optimize ourselves. So that's the process that we're going through as well. So it's getting us to think about where are you in this market. But the one thing that we agree on is around platforms. And what does that mean? It means that having an IT system that can allow you to integrate and connect with other things in a simple and easy way. So we have a platform to connect to. And the problems when you start to look at networks, they're very static, they're very immovable, they're difficult to configure, they're difficult to change, and they're difficult to interoperate with. And that is something that needs to happen. And we are looking at networks now from a Cisco perspective. We look at networks now as platforms, and I'll talk a bit more about that later on. But you need to have a digital platform that can be ready to, it doesn't have to do it straight away, but be ready to connect to things, be able to connect to your existing IT systems, be able to connect to your customers, suppliers, but also ecosystem partners as well. So ecosystem software that can actually go, do you know what, I can actually connect via APIs and pull intelligence off your platforms to deliver business outcomes or to enhance business outcomes. So that's where Gartner that's where they're positioning it now, and we really agree with that. So from that point of view, let's look at that. And they've actually created a blueprint for this, and I can happily share these slides. These have been recorded as well, so it's there for you to look at. So it's something for you to consider. Going, can you look around this map and be able to say, right, are we able to connect to the back office system? Are we able to connect to things? Are we able to connect to third parties? How simple is it for us to do that? So I think it's about looking at this roadmap. If we just look a bit like the underground map it reminds me of the Circle Line in London, but it's looking at that and going, are you able to do these things? And if not, then you've got to think about how are you able to do that? Is it relevant? Isn't it relevant? But also, how difficult is it for you to do that? So think about how you create those digital platforms. And the one thing I want you to think about is the automotive industry or the transport industry. We've started with horses, horse and carts. We've moved on to steam. We're now on to the top right there. We've got motorways, massive infrastructure. We've all got we have cars that get us from A to B. But the one thing that we know is coming is autonomous vehicles. And the reason I want you to think about that is because you might have a view that they could be coming in 1, 3, 5, 10 years time, but and when I've shared this slide with many customers and asked them to say, stick your hand up, when do you think autonomous vehicles are coming? And they might disagree on the years that it's going to come. The one thing they don't disagree on, they know it's coming. And that's exactly the same around why networks need to change. And we need to be able to create these platforms. For us, as businesses and organizations, we need to be ready for digitization. We need to be ready for optimization of the services we deliver. And the network is at the heart of that because we connect everything. And if we don't get it right, we're not going to be able to do that. So that's where platforms comes into it. And I'm showing this picture of a smartphone, but even the name of that device isn't correct because we call it a smartphone. What it is, it's a platform. It's a platform for me to run applications on that allows me to do things. I can either make a phone call with it, I can do a video call with it, I can collaborate with it, I can do chat with it, I can get my email on it. I can pretty much do everything that I need to do from a business perspective, wherever I am on this device, because it's a platform for development. The smartphone industry is basically a platform for developers to develop the apps and for us to get the best benefit of either our personal life or our work life out of it. And that's where the network needs to change. And that's why change has got to happen. And keep this in mind of this principle of a platform, because that's what the network needs to become. It can't be just something about connectivity. And from a challenges perspective, we aren't really seeing anything hugely different to what Richard said. And we totally agree with that. The interesting thing is when I look at this, there's a couple of things here that haven't changed in the 12 plus years that I've been at Cisco. When I look at mobility, when I first joined Cisco, I came from what was called a mobility company, and we made handheld terminals, we made Wi-Fi, we did a lot in retail, which is very much a wireless mobile environment around stores. We still had those challenges then. Mobile's still a challenge now. How many devices are connecting to the network? And what were the applications? Because of these platform devices, because of these smartphones and tablets and laptops, are platforms for applications that want more from the network. When it used to be just about being able to connect, sort of 12, 15 years ago for me, it was about connecting devices to point of sale systems or to back-end stock inventory systems, which were very lightweight, very low in data. We were sending keystrokes over the wireless. Now, it's all about video. It's all about in experiences. It's all about being able to deliver high bandwidth, bandwidth applications across the network. And then the amount of users, we all have multiple devices. They're still there. These challenges haven't moved. They just got bigger as the technology's moved on. Apologies, the phone's ringing. So that's the thing that we need to think about. So that challenge hasn't changed, and security hasn't changed. Security has always been there, and security was always about how do you identify people on the network, how do you spot if someone's trying to hack onto your network, if somebody's trying to do a denial of service onto your network. Now it's about how do I segment my network? How do I, when you look at some of the cyber attacks, how do I make sure that as and when we do get attacked, that I can very much quickly find out the attack, who's affected by the attack, the impact of the attack, and how can I minimize the spread of that attack? Those sort of challenges are still there, and we've been talking about security on the network for a long time around sort of around identity of who's coming on the network. And those challenges are still there. They just got bigger because it's now about, well, okay, if I can identify who's on the network, I can then see that something bad's happening on the network. I can throw that person off the network. But the bit is that how do I segment my network? And that seems to be the biggest challenge nowadays, because segmenting networks has always been very difficult. The Internet of Things has been around for a long time. We talked about it. And we used to sort of go, right, Internet of Things, yeah, it's about connecting everybody. Let's not have two separate networks. But things connecting to the network is happening now. I'm seeing it at home. I have got smart meters. I've got smart devices. I've got smart TVs. I've got these things coming on the network that I'm going, right, if this was a user, I would most probably have security policies. I'd be interrogating the OS running on it. I'd be looking at maybe antivirus, things like that. But these things are on the network now. TVs. I've got TVs. I've got Amazon Fire Sticks. I've got heating systems. I've got all these different devices that connect to the network and cameras. But I don't have any control about actually what's running on them. So I need to be able to think about how do I manage it? How do I get them onto the network? But how do I manage that environment and keep the rest of my network secure? And then the access to cloud and the applications. Our applications are not sitting in data centers anymore. Lots of our customers, I don't think there's ever a customer I've ever spoken to that hasn't gone to either 365 or is using Amazon or is using Azure. or using Google Cloud. They are looking towards, that's where that, they'll say, oh, we got a cloud first policy, which is a very easy thing to say. But what that means now is, from a networks team's perspective, a performance perspective, a security perspective, is going, our applications aren't sitting in one place anymore. They're sitting in many different places. And when we start to look at where those applications are sitting, and then we look at where those users are coming in from, whether they're coming in from their handheld device out on the road over 3G, 4G, and then in the future 5G, but are they in their home office? Are they in the head office? Are they coming in via VPN? They're all coming from different places, and they're all accessing the applications that are hosted in different places. So how do we ensure that those users have a great user experience if those applications are being hosted not by infrastructure that's owned by us? So these are the kinds of challenges that are still there. And there's huge amounts of complexity, and the complexity isn't getting any easier. And that's where we've got to drive change. And we work with a company called ESG Research, who actually went around and surveyed around thousands of customers at a sort of a IT director, CIO level. And they talked about the network challenges. And we talked about, these were their top ones. And these are sort of in order. So each one of these is out of 100%. So, but the biggest one was budget constraints. And I have personally been into meetings with customers who say, I'd love to be able to upgrade my network, but I'm really struggling to justify the budget, the cost of it, to the finance director or to the business. It's really difficult because, and that's the fundamental challenge, that customers are unable to show the value to the business of the network. We take it for granted. They just say, well, it's just about connectivity. But the real value of the network isn't being shown. And that's where the problem, and that's caused by just as much by us as vendors, as Cisco, as anyone else, because we made it difficult and complex to show the value or get to the value. Implementing security is difficult. You mean the amount of times that customers go, I'd love to be able to deploy even such simple things as .1x on the network, because if they get it wrong, it's a mass network outage, it's a real problem. They have to make sure, it's a real risk, and people, you mean, get in trouble when it doesn't work. Provisioning networks for new applications, for example, just simple things of putting voice on the network. I remember years ago, so I'm maybe talking 15, 16, 17 years ago, I had to implement voice over IP on a network. I really struggled to ensure that the quality of service was working properly because I got it wrong. Those sort of same challenges are still here nowadays, but the applications are business apps. The applications could be voice, it could be video, but how do you make a network prioritize and give the best experience for an application? It's really difficult. And ensuring that they are providing network performance. How do you make sure? Everyone just goes, it's the network's fault, because it's the easiest thing to blame and the hardest thing to prove when it isn't their fault. And I've even got personal experiences of friends of mine who work in the IT industry recruiting staff to be able to solve that because of experience, because of a lack of experience out there. But those are the types of things, and we look at the lack of knowledge of new technologies, and that's the thing about, we got to make sure that we're keeping our customers updated on what's new out there. But these are the challenges that we've seen from third parties to show that what the challenges out there, and I would totally agree with them, and I've got most probably examples of, or personal experience of, most of all of those. So this is why we've got to change. Cisco, we have to change to take away those challenges. We can't expect people to get more, to increase their skills, to give more time, to really work harder to justify the value of networks and the cost of networks to the business. We've got to be able to change that. And that's the thing that we've got to be able to do. So that's how we're doing it. And this is how we are. So intent-based networking. It's slightly different to software-defined networking, because software-defined is, depending on your point of view of it, could be how software, the network is software run by software, and the software tells the network what decisions to make. We're sort of flipping that on its head, because what is the intent, or what is the business intent that you need the network to do? whether it's connecting to cloud applications, whether it's connecting remote users, whether it's bringing a new application on board, whether it's providing enhanced security to the business, so you're protecting it from cyber attacks. What is the intent that you need from the network? And that's what we have to deliver. So how are we doing that? So first of all, it's about the foundation of the network. And the network it's what we talk about from a hardware perspective. We have brought out new products. We have the Catalyst 9K range, both at the edge, the Catalyst 9200, 9300, 9400, and now we've just announced the 9600, which is the core switch. Fundamentally, they're all the same. They are all intent-based networking switches, fully programmable, fully automated, fully able to deliver huge amounts of extra value. And how we do that is using the platforms above that I'll talk about. And in there is enhanced security. They built for security. For example, using encrypted traffic analytics, having hardware built into the switches that is able to spot encrypted malware on your network without having to decrypt it. So it's built in there from identity management, of being able to automatically through software, somebody comes onto the network to hold it, go and check with the policy engine, which is the identity services engine, and then allow that person onto the network. How can you automate segmentation? That's all built in from scratch. And we always have high availability. And availability can be in multiple ways, whether it's around multiple power supplies, multiple uplinks, doubling up on, for example, it may be in the distribution layer or in the core, that availability or software availability from regards to supervisors. That availability is all there. And the scalability, how you can now build bigger networks that are 40 gig, 100 gig, how you can build those bigger networks now that can give you that bandwidth. And bandwidth is a real challenge there as well, because now we're starting to talk about the new Wi-Fi 6 standard, which can give 9.6 gig, and you're going, wow, my network is such a bottleneck. You even look back at where we are now with 802.11 AC Wave 2, which is over 3 gig of data. So we need to have networks that are scalable, that can grow. And then we talk about the software layer. And in here, we talk about the software side of things, around automation. And these things are all delivered through a platform called DNA Center, or Digital Network Architecture Center. And the analogy I like to give, because I do come from a mobility and a Wi-Fi background, is if we look at the days, if I look at sort of 20 odd years ago, when we started the introduction of Wi-Fi, we didn't have controllers. But very quickly, the industry moved to using controllers because of the difficulty of configuring and managing hundreds and hundreds or thousands of access points. That is where we're getting to now with the network. So the wired network, it's difficult to manage and run because it's too many devices out there. It's too many things to do, too many devices to touch. So we've got to automate that, and that's done through having a software-defined controller, and that is called DNA Center. And the three things that it looks at in DNA Center is about automating process. How can you automate things that are simple and easy to do? Repeatable things. How are you able to create security policy and build policy on behavior? How are you able to spot behavior and have an automated process of, I can see something, that person doing something bad, how can I automate the process of them being segmented, removed and kicked off the network? How can I get intelligence from the network? How can I really understand how well my network is performing? How well are my applications performing? How good is my user experience? Those are the things that are difficult to do and that we are automating. So when you're thinking about looking at networks and you're thinking about going, how am I going to automate this? But what is the platform that I'm going to use to automate this? And that's where DNA Center comes in. And then we look to where we're going, the value beyond the network, which is really quite exciting. This is the bit I feel that this is where the sort of Horizon 1, Horizon 2 things, because in the middle two layers, we're there, and this is what we're delivering today. The next wave is going to be around how do we integrate with that network? How do you, using the open APIs that we have, how can you write code to automatically to get even more value out of the network? And the next generation of network engineers are going to be able to have to work at these three layers of, right, I know the hardware, I can design a network, I know about security policy, I now can know how to use automation, I know to use controllers, and then how I can build intent into the network. And then it's about, well, how using APIs, how can I then integrate into third-party applications? And an example of that is around like ServiceNow. ServiceNow interlink is certified with Cisco's DNA Center, because we can now open a ticket. The network, the ServiceNow will go away, speak to the DNA Center, which will speak to the network and pull loads of information. So most of your fault finding is already done. So when a ticket is open, the first line or the second line engineer can look at that ticket and go, right, I've done all this fault finding already. I can prove what I know exactly where I need to go to solve this problem. And that's when you start to look at that sort of an integration. You start to look at how you can deliver managed services over it and deliver managed services from it. And then look at how you can develop applications to go, I can talk directly to the network. I can write applications or APIs using the API to speak to the network directly, to get information to say, right, actually, this is what I need from you, network. I need this latency. I need this bandwidth. And if you can't deliver that to me, then you need to let me know. And that's the type of interaction. And that's where we start to go with that. And you start to look at where you can start to use third parties now. And we have ecosystem partners out there who can use these, who can use the APIs from the network. For example, we're using it now to measure space utilization from a Wi-Fi perspective. We're pulling out via APIs, we're pulling analytical data off the network to say, how many devices are we seeing in an area, and integrating that into other third-party applications, such as building occupancy or booking systems. So when you book a room, you can see if it's been used, how well it was used, and to that is a business application, a business purpose. But we can be able to do that all via software, all via APIs. So this is how we're doing it, and these are the sort of the 5 pillars that we're talking about. And I have a certain bias because I work in a network environment, but and this is how we got to work, because this is how Cisco's got to change for us to be able to deliver that across the whole portfolio. Because we're talking about embracing multi-cloud, going, right, where are applications being hosted? I've got some in-house, I've got some in Azure, I've got some in AWS. How do I move those applications? How do I do it securely? How do I make sure policy moves with them? All those sort of things we need to be able to look at. We talk about reinventing the network, and I've talked a bit about that today with the Catalyst 9K. We're talking about that from an automation point of view. We are reinventing the network. I've been in the industry a while now, and this is the first time that, connectivity is being given as a must, but we're talking about how we're changing that network. How do we get the value out of data and analytics? There's so much analytical data going across the network, but we don't get any value out of it because we don't see it and don't do anything with it. We're very data-rich, intelligence poor. So we need to get the value out of the network and really show how we're able to solve the problems, how we're able to see where those problems are, how quickly can we prove it's not the network's problem, the network's fault, or how quickly can we spot a user issue? How can we prove that our applications are running well between the cloud? How can we prove that Office 365 is working well? And then we start to use security is foundational, and how we build security into all the things that we're talking about. And the other thing is about how do we make sure that we have great experiences from a user perspective. Whether you're using our collaboration platforms, whether you're on a contact center, whether you're on a video platform, it's about being able to then go from there to making sure from a network perspective that we are delivering a great user experience. And when somebody says, oh, this isn't working, the network's broken, and I'm sure that you've all heard that, we're able to very much prove that. So here are some of the acquisitions that we made in this place. We talk about it from a networks perspective, where we look at Viptela in our SD-WAN portfolio. We bought those guys, and they're great because it now gives us a real great software-based wide area network solution. Software defined, both from delivering it either yourself, getting it from a supervisor, but you get value from the network now from a software defined, because it's not about routing and getting Office A to connect to Office B or to their headquarters. It's about saying, right, what security policies can I put onto the network? How do I segment my wide area network? How do I know how well my applications are running off my network? And how well, if my applications aren't running, how do I reroute that traffic? And how do I know what is the optimum path for that? And software defining it and making it really easy to use and automating that process. When you start to look at from the data perspective, you start to look at it from the DNA center assurance of being able to see how well your application is running on the network. And I'm going to give you a demonstration of that soon. Building that into security, where you look at things such as Umbrella, where every DNS entry, every time a DNS request goes to Cisco's Umbrella cloud, and we check it. And I'm a real advocate of this because I use it myself at home. I use this technology. I have my router at home pointing towards Umbrella, so every DNS request goes to Umbrella, and I know that all my data is checked and safe before that, and it allows me to keep protected. And when I spot that I have that one of my devices is compromised, I know the rest of my network's safe, because every time one of those guys tries to call home and do something bad, it's been blocked. ISC, the identity services end, is the fundamental about policy. It's the place that we create policy. But on the flip side of that, it's really difficult to do. It's not a simple and easy tool to create policy. So we've taken that, integrated it into the DNA center, and automated it, made it simple and easy. And then we start to look at ETA, which is encrypted traffic analytics, and how the net flow data and the metadata that sits on the net to spot when the network has been compromised or a user has been compromised. And it goes on to then about building a platform around for our collaboration platforms, for BroadSoft, for WebEx, for meetings, for Teams. But none of that can happen unless we have a network that is able to see in real time how well those user experiences are. And that's what we're delivering differently now. And the three parts of intent-based network is that, first of all, is about automating processes that were difficult to do. And the reason they're difficult because they're time-consuming. They're not be difficult, but they're time-consuming. And that's what the automation is all about. Automate as much as we can on the network as possible through DNA Center. And then we start to look at analytics and assurance and start going, well, how well is my network running? How is my user experience? How can I prove that my Office 365 application is running well? That is fundamentally in there as well. And the ability through this platform of DNA Center of using programmability, using APIs and writing your own programs. The network engineer of the future needs to be able to go, right, I need to understand networks, I need to design networks, I need to be able to configure networks, but I also need to be able to understand the fault finding thing, but also being able to use automation, write code that will be able, such as Python, to actually write the code to automate those processes that they want to do, because that's where we need to go. We need to start to think about the next generation of what network engineers need to look like. And again, it's about security and compliance. How we're able to do that, how we're able to automate the creation of policy and the implementation of policy. How are we able to ensure that we're compliant? How are we able to ensure that we are segmenting and make sure it's automating that process? And then being able to say, I'm being attacked, I can see it, and automate the process of protecting yourself. All that needs to be fundamentally built into the network. So if we start to look at the areas where we do this, we're looking at the access layer around segmentation with the 9200, the 9300, the 9400s, and obviously in 9600s in the core now. The wide area network, intent-based network, is through our Viptela acquisition. They've been doing that for a while now with the Nexus 9K and ACI, where they've had that control. They've led the way with intent-based network in the data center, because they went straight to automation, where we came out and said, right, it's the Catalyst 9K and then there's DNA Center, and we need to start to now go, right, we need to be looking at deploying DNA Center, because it's going to give you that automation. That's the thing, is going to give you the proof and evidence that the network is adding value to the business. The DNA center is going to be able to do that. And then you start to look at the cloud edge and how you'd be able to deliver that, because now we can take the virtual functions of a router, the virtual center of a firewall, the virtual functions of anything can be now deployed in a cloud-based environment, not a physical environment. So that's really interesting. So all the security, even from an SD-WAN perspective, you deploy that all in AWS. You can host it and run it in any cloud as well. So you're able to read to the cloud all the functionality you'd expect of being able to manage and route, and also see how your application is performing. Segmentation can all be done in the cloud without a physical appliance at all. So that's how we envision the network and how we move into cloud. So this is coming to the end of the slides, and I'm going to give you a bit of a demonstration for the next 5 to 10 minutes. But this, even if you take the numbers away, you will get a positive move in any of these things. So we can improve network provisioning times. We can improve issue resolution. We can reduce the impact of security breaches into your organization, and we can help to reduce your operating expenditure by basically automating the processes that are difficult to do because they're time consuming, because you have to go away and touch so many places of the network. So that is pretty much, whatever the numbers they are, you will always help. You will definitely get an improvement in any of these areas. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to quickly, I'm going to end this presentation now. I'm going to go quickly and Richard, do we have any questions been asked?
Hi, Justin. Yeah, so one is, where is the best place to start with regards to automation, orchestration, and analytics with DNA Center?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, and the area that I always say is all about visibility first. If you're looking at if you're looking at a Cisco network and you're looking to procure a network, I would always look at deploying DNA Center with it as well. It's not a hugely expensive an appliance. It's an appliance that goes into the network, but it's not hugely expensive. But what it allows you to do, though, is very quickly, when you turn it on, is to see how well your network is running. You will then get visibility of user experience. And it's all about visibility. You don't have to drive any change. It's just sucking up data from the network and presenting you with how well your network's running and what is it you need to do. So that's pretty much, I would say, where you start. And this is leading into where I'm showing now. So what you're seeing here is DNA Center, and it's made up into some areas. It's got design. So design is about where have you put your locations, where have you put your equipment, and putting all those devices onto sort of like a map of what your network looks like. It's the place where you create your policy and your security policy, and we talk about macro and micro segmentation. So we segment now, not on IP address. We don't VLAN anymore. It's all based on tags, but those tags are based on policy, and that policy is based on users, user groups, applications, and intent. That's how you create a policy. So we don't care about people's IP addresses anymore. If they've got an IP address, that's fine, but we don't care about where they need to connect to, because policy just looks at who they are, where they are, what does the policy say, and how do we impose that intent. Provisioning is about how you'll be able to do things such as zero-touch deployment in there as well, how you can provision quality of service, how you can automate provisioning of networks really quickly, and devices. You can actually take devices out the box, deploy them with, and just power them up and connect to the network, and they will configure themselves from the DNA Center. The thing that I'm going to talk you through now is around assurance, and take you through that, because that's why I think is the best value to start. And what you're looking at here now is DNA that can store up to 3 months worth of data. So it gives you historical data. You can go back in time. So when the person goes, oh yeah, I was in the office yesterday and the network was really rubbish, and you go, oh, okay, great, let me have a look at that for you, because you can now go back in time. And what this does is give you a quick view of the health of the network. Because of the automation, it's seeing all the problems coming in, and it's telling you already, it's prioritized everything for you. You got all your P1 issues. I could view more. and it'll start to give me all the issues out there. And there he goes all my P1s, and I've got a P3 in there as well. But then I can very quickly go in fabric reachability failure, but it automatically gives me what the problem is. I've lost connectivity to the ISE server. It's told me that, so I could click on that. It's given me uplink interface availability reach, and it's going, right, okay, I can tell you what my links are down. It's also telling me to verify where the ISE server is up. It's going to verify the route to the ISE server. And it's telling me what to do. It's automating this. And if I want to click on run, it will do it for me. It's automating those simple and easy processes. And for me, I know I would be on the network. I'd be on the command line. I'll be going type show, IP, question mark, right, okay, route. And then I'll be putting in an IP address. It's taking that, it's getting me quicker to the solution by automation. And that gives you things that, so it's already told me, go radio high utilization. It's telling me there exactly interface issue instant. The 2.4 gigabyte radio on this AP is experiencing high utilization, 57 counts. It's showing me there. Wow, that's my threshold. That's where I'm sitting at, and it's going back in time. It's not just saying it's happened now. And then it's also giving me suggested actions to follow. Really great, helpful stuff. And I spell you, as a wireless guy, these are the stuff that would take me longer to do because they're the hardest ones to solve. So that's from that perspective. So let's go back to that front page again. So very quickly, I'm looking on here and I'm finding what the issues are. So I can look at my network health. So it's automatically gathering data. And this is showing me over the last, what are we now? This is showing me over the last 24 hours. I can change that to the last 7 days. I can be very custom by it as well. So there you go. I can tell you that everything's been pretty much running. I've got some routers there. I've got a score health of low on one device. I've got the same here. I've got one device that's below between 1 and 3. But I can go in, find that, and solve that very, very quickly. Gives you information that you would maybe get from over there, but it's also telling me there where my problems are. I've got a switch there where the health score is 0. It's telling me memory, look at it, it's telling me already memory utilization, 99%, CPU utilization. It's telling me it's automatically gathering data, and automation is gathering this data for me. The bits that I like is when you start to look at clients. So imagine a scenario now that I've got a problem with the network. I've got a problem, someone complains, somebody phones up and goes, oh, the network's not working. Here, just showing you how well my clients are running over the last 24 hours. Again, I can change that. But very quickly in here, I could type in, what's your name, sir? Oh, your name's Gordon Thompson. Right. I can very quickly click on that user, go to what we call his user 360, and I can actually now see where his problems are. I can tell straight away because it's already gathering information for me. I'm looking here and it tells me it's an Apple device. It's telling me it's an iPad. It's got a MAC address. It's gathering all this information for me already. But also, I'm looking at this historically. Over the last 24 hours, I can see there's a problem, and I can make that problem drop down. So I can go, right, let's get right into that window where the problem is. And I can click on there, and it can tell me, right, okay, what my issues are. Onboarding. Client took too long to onboard. Excessive time due to association failures. Wireless clients took too long to connect. So I'm already know, and I can find that out. And then I can click on that and go, right, well, here's actually already worked out what my connector, what the AP is, what's the controller going to. I can go through here. It's captured the data for that period of time and telling me I've got where I can see that it's reauthenticating. All this stuff I would have to go out and put in packet captures. I'd have to maybe go out and do a wireless packet capture. I'm doing all this remotely. One of the hard things as well is around path trace, about actually finding out which devices and which parts of the network is that device running through. So I can very quickly type in here, I could put in an IP address. Let me just put in something. Let's find one. Oh, they're all wireless devices. I'm trying to go to one that's been used previously, but there you go. Let's try that. I can just do it very quickly, do a path trace, and it's told me automatically. There you go. It's told me that all the APs, the switch is running to, but it's also told me that's where the problem is. So I can click on that, and it's showing me I've got a problem with an ACL that's sitting on that egress port on that switch. I know it's given me, its ACL name is 120 and it's telling me that it's given a deny. So I know exactly now where to go. So I can prove that, yes, it was a network problem and I know exactly where to go from it. All this is from literally typing it. All I typed in is the username. So imagine now when somebody phoned it up and complained, going, oh, yes, I can see that happening. So I'm really sorry about that. I can see that you've had a bad experience. We'll go and have a look at it. But here as well, from an application experience, I can see here now, this is the application experience of that user. So Gordon is not having a great time using WebEx and Microsoft Office. So I can look at that. I can click on that. And it's showing me here what's going on from an application experience. And it's showing me here exactly where my problem is. I'm actually logging on to the router, and it's showing me that, okay, my packet throughput is fine, packet loss is fine, application server latency is fine. Do you know what? My network latency is too high. What's the problem? So I know where to go now because it's telling me the switch that I need to go to solve it. Where my network latency is maximum is 600, my average is 400. If I'm trying to do video or trying to do something like that, it's going to be a poor experience. It's telling me exactly where to go. And that's all from literally just from a few clicks. I'm finding out exactly what's going on with the network. And when I look at the application health, like I just said again, I see that from a user perspective. I can see it from an overall network perspective. And here it's showing me, okay, my medical records is great, but my Office 365 is a problem. My WebEx is a problem. I can click on that. It's showing me my last 24-hour view. I can go to the like I said, this can go to it, but it's showing me where the problem is. Again, my network latency, and it's telling me exactly where it is. It's telling me there that that's where my problem is sitting. And that's showing me exactly what the problem with that is, with that router. So I now know I know where to go and solve that problem, and it's also going to give me, like I showed earlier on, recommendations to solve it. Okay, so that's a very quick whistle-stop tour. I know I've been talking for a long time, so I'm going to just stop there, stop sharing. If anybody has any questions, I'm really happy to answer any more. All right, Richard, thanks very much. Over to you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that, Justin. That was brilliant. Fantastic to see an overview of kind of what's happening in the industry and the technology available from Cisco, and obviously the technology that we're working with and implementing with customers as well. So I'd just like to, yeah, big thanks to you for taking the time for delivering that. Great to see the demo at the end as well. Obviously, if anyone has any sort of further questions after this, what I'll do is I'll make sure to circulate the slides and a recording of the webinar. But of course, if you want to talk further, please just contact Axonex. So I think following that, it's time to wrap up. So thanks to everyone for attending, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.